Hey, y'all. Ooh, I am so excited. I'm so hot, first and foremost. I'm just like pouring sweat, but I'm so deeply, deeply, deeply honored to be here with you today. Good afternoon, Smith School of Social Work, faculty, administration, students, alumni, guests, and most importantly, class of 2018 graduates. It is a really deep honor to be given the opportunity to share with you today as your commencement speaker. I want to start by acknowledging the inherent power dynamic in this conversation. The way I'm positioned as some sort of expert assigned to impart wisdom upon you. The way you are positioned as graduating students needing wisdom imparted to them. Let's start by interrupting that framework. A paradigm that makes invisible the inherent wisdom required to have arrived in the seats you are sitting in today. A paradigm that changes the way you listen and changes the way I share. A paradigm that narrows the portal of connection. The opening through which we get to be human together. I am no wise expert. Shoot, I'm not even a social worker, y'all. I'm just a lady committed to radical self-love as the transformative foundation of how we change the world. And you magnificent graduates are not clueless calves. So let's use this next 20 or so minutes to explore how human connection shifts when we name power dynamics in a space and then work to disrupt them. Let's notice what gets changed or transformed in our relating when we become not experts and students, but humans, committed to exploring and unwinding this spool of complex threads that we call living together. What if your clients, coworkers, children were here to teach you everything you thought you were here to impart to them? What if the field of social work is not about helping or saving at all? Just as Brittany shared with us, famed Aboriginal activist Lila Watson and a group of Queenstown activists are quoted as having said, "If you have come here to help me, do not bother. If you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." When our liberation is bound up together, we may not all be risking at the same level, but we are agreeing to share in the risk. So on this day, I want to impart with you all a mandate for your professional career as you go forth. It's a mandate that is going to require you to risk. Luckily, class of 2018, I know that you all are not unfamiliar with or adverse to risk. My mother, who transitioned in 2012, who I totally believe is communing with Aretha Franklin today, was nothing if not a direct woman. She would say, "Sony, you need to call a thing a thing." My mother believed that we should name what is true despite the discomfort that the true thing might cause us. My friend and poet Andrea Gibson says, "Even when the truth isn't hopeful, the telling of it is." Late Black feminist poet, scholar, and activist Audre Lorde said, "Your silence will not protect you." And my hunch is these adages may have proven true for you all leading up to this day. In preparation for this talk, I learned a little bit about Smith, a little bit about the School of Social Work and some of the struggles that you all have been through in the last 27 months. The ways all of you, students and faculty and administration, have been called to come to terms not only with your intentions, but with the structures of systemic oppression, racism, and white supremacy, and the ways that they manifest in our institutions and in ourselves, no matter our most sincere intentions, no matter whether we were trying to be good people. I imagine over the last 27 months, you have learned some excruciatingly difficult lessons. One of them being that our intentions are not unto themselves enough. Maybe you learned that we cannot change in the world that which we are unwilling to have transformed in our own beings. Perhaps you have seen how we must build in us what we say we want built in the world. The labor required to navigate that transformation cannot be undertaken without risk. Y'all, I heard it got ugly. I was told that some nasty letters got written. I heard it got really hard. I want you to know that that's okay. I want you to know that nothing grows without discomfort. I'm gonna say that again for you because I want you to take it into your spirit. Nothing grows without discomfort. I want you to know that on occasion, even our detractors sometimes have a salient word for our journey. And with that, your mandate comes directly from one of those letters. Today, I am calling on each of you graduates to go forth and taint the profession of social work. To truly understand this mandate, we must understand the etymology of the word. See, taint comes from the Latin word tingere, which means to dye or tinge with color. I'm gonna say that again one more time. I think that's a word, right? The taint comes from the Latin word tingere, which means to dye or tinge with color. That word, tingere, was then translated into Old French as teint, or the Old English version, attaint, both which became the word taint, whose meaning at that time in translation became to convict or prove guilty. It is from that source that we derived our present understanding of the word taint, whose contemporary definition in noun form is a trace of a bad or undesirable substance or quality, and as a verb means affect with a bad or undesirable quality. I imagine over the course of this program, some of you all may have felt a bit like the trace of an undesirable substance here in the space. It is possible that some of you were told that the questions you were asking and the charges you were making were affecting this institution in undesirable ways. To you, I say, the status quo never desires change, but that never means it doesn't need it. Power desires to live uncontested, even when we don't realize that's what's happening. Sometimes you're gonna have to be undesirable, baby. The work of liberation is to disturb power. Abolitionist Frederick Douglass told us that power concedes nothing without demand. Your demands will not always be desired, but they will be necessary. In order to create the just, equitable world social workers must be charged with co-creating. You will need to taint social work. Let's spend some time with the Latin root of the word taint, tingere, to dye or tinge with color. According to a Data USA statistic, in 2016, 67.1% of social workers were white. That statistic was true even as children and adults of color were disproportionately represented as clients in social service sectors. To dye a profession that is mostly white is not only to challenge a structure built on the useless detritus of white saviorism, but as importantly, to challenge oneself to live Lila Watson's quote. To taint social work, you must see your wholeness and humanity as inextricably linked to the wholeness and humanity of each person you encounter. The purpose of your work is not to save anyone, but to be part of the restoration of your own humanity by being in service toward the restoration of all of humanity. And this is a goal that cannot be achieved without the destruction of systems of oppression that impinge on the autonomy, efficacy, and dignity of marginalized people every day. To tinge this profession is to dismantle a perspective that offers white cultural norms as those to aspire to, while pathologizing those which whiteness has deemed othered. In order to taint social work, you must be willing to challenge the constructs of white supremacy. But you must also be willing to challenge able-bodied supremacy and cis and hetero supremacy and neurotypical supremacy and thin supremacy and all forms of dominant supremacy. And not only their overt machinations, but their deeply rooted indoctrination inside you. Yes, all of us are indoctrinated into a system of body and social hierarchy, and there is some access of privilege you hold that will obscure your vision of liberation. I run an organization solely focused on the intersectional examination of social justice issues, and there are days I marvel at my ableist, cis-centric, white supremacist brain. But my work is not to abide in some fictional reality where the entire world, who just so happened to be steeped in racism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, fatphobia, etc., somehow managed to exclude me as a result of God's love and light and coat me with a magical, nice fairy dust that created a Teflon covering around my very aura, preventing me from being sprinkled with the same biases and prejudices and internalized oppressions that all the rest of y'all got. That is the thinking that needs a diagnosis. That is a detachment from reality. If I want to taint any system built on oppression, I must be willing to get intimate with how oppressive systems reside in me. To reject them is to reject the work of dismantling them, and it is to serve the status quo, and I cannot live into a mandate of justice from that framework. We must allow our perspective about the work to be tainted as well. It will be necessary to challenge the framework that assumes that there is some sort of purity inherent in the profession of social work. Allow yourself to be daily reminded that purity of intention does not absolve the consequences of impact. To taint social work is to make visible the ways the field's historical and present-day constructs have caused harm. To taint social work is to make visible those elements of the profession which we have treated as beyond critique because we are all so well-meaning. I charge each of you with allowing your lens in this field to be colored. I invite you to explore your complicity in assuming your well-meaningness is enough. Not with shame, not from a place of self-flagellation, but from an honest, grace-filled place, a place where we can both hold ourselves accountable and forgiven. You will need both to honor this mandate. The definition of the old French and English version of the word was to convict or prove guilty. To taint social work, you must be willing to convict social work of its historical crimes. I asked my friends who practice social work to share what they saw as their professional beliefs and standards that have been most historically harmful in marginalized communities. 185 comments later, I assessed that one, my Facebook friends were woke AF. And secondly, that social work as a system has perpetuated some horrific injustices that will require decades of intentional long-term undoing. From resource gatekeeping based on bias and prejudice, to ableist, homophobic, transphobic, racist, sexist violence. Quite simply, social work looks exactly like the society that created it. You will need to resist the urge to acquit your profession of its fraught history because of your relational proximity to it. We don't like to get close to the things we find guilty. But to taint social work, you must find it guilty, and then you must be committed to its rehabilitation. For it is not enough to convict a thing and leave a system unchanged. You cannot transform a thing you hate. Hatred and disdain won't allow you to get close enough to it. Transformation requires intimacy, and intimacy is never neutral. Taint your profession by getting close and honest about its ills, and then commit to healing what parts you can, because your liberation is bound up with it. You have been given an enormous mandate, one you may be wondering how you will ever live into. Here's the how. Every single one of us was born into this system with all of its violences and degradations. Every one of us has been both an agent of tyranny and an agent of mercy. We are called in this day, at this time, to a transformative compassion for ourselves and for those still stuck in the clay of oppressive systems. We must offer a grace, but only from a cup we have sipped from first. Forgive yourself for all you do not know, for all you were completely wrong about. Unlock the cabinet of your chest and look for the getting it wrong. Remember that there is no place on this train towards liberation, freedom, and healing where you can step on at this point without crushing someone's toe. Say sorry, mean it, and get on the damn train. Folks already on the woke express, say ouch and scoot down. We need everyone on this ride in order to get to where we're trying to go. Hold systems and institutions to account. Hold humans and their fallibilities with compassion. There is an area of your own privilege you have yet to awaken to. Remember that anger is a fuel, and fuel without purpose burns everything. Be strategic with your rage. Lastly, 2 weeks ago, I hit a wall with this speech. I was like, oh, I don't know what else to say to these babies. I don't know. I was talking to my brilliant friend, Keisha Williams, who happens to be a Smith School of Social Work alum, class of '08. I shared with her how I just couldn't dig up any more words. In her epic wisdom, she said, that's it. That's the question, Sonya. Ask them, what do you do when the well is empty? When you have scraped the very floor of your patience in this work and you are only turning up silt? What of when you hit your wall? Who are your people, your living waters, where there has only been desert for days? To fulfill your mandate, you will need to defy the lie of individualism. You will need the lap, shoulder, arms you can fall out in. You will need to give yourself permission to fall apart and find out who you can trust with all your raggedy pieces. You will need to share your raggedy parts, first with yourself, in all the tenderness you imagine holding your clients with. This is it. This gentle kindness with which you hold yourself is what you must give the world. It is how you will taint this profession. It is how you will transform this world. It is how we will change this planet, one tiny radical act of love at a time, starting here, starting there first. I'm not the least bit worried. Y'all got this. Congratulations, Smith College School of